Greetings, Guardians, my name is Byf here. So, Heresy Act 2's story continues to unfold, and there are a bunch of moving parts to it now. New secrets got discovered this week, and whilst there was a little word on our new enemy that's been quietly building in the background of it all, this week was mainly focused on the Hive Guards and a sudden disturbance and a sort of crisis of faith that the memory of Oryx in the Echo is undergoing. So today, let's touch on some of those lore details, and let's talk a little bit more about some secrets found in the Dreadnought, yet again. To start off, this week we ended up going to the Shrine of Oryx. This is already a pretty meaningful location because, it's the Shrine of Oryx. It's a classic Destiny 1 destination, and it's also the first direct reference to the Taken King that we ever heard of. This time, however, when we enter the shrine, we can see that there is a new and somewhat unfamiliar ritual being conducted in front of us. A coven of Taken wizards appear to be converting a Hive Ogre into a Taken Ogre. That's not something they should be able to do all on their own. In particular, the ceremony is referred to as the Offering. There is a little bit more telltale commentary here as Eris makes the note that without Oryx and without the Witness, there shouldn't be anyone actually capable of creating new Taken. Had I seen this 3 weeks ago, I might have assumed that this was the Winnower. Now though, I think we understand that the picture is a lot more complicated than that. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, then go ahead and watch my last video. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. At least I think it's a big deal. It's a new god that we're talking about here, basically. And you don't get that every other day in Destiny. Anyway, after pursuing the wizards and the Taken Ogre further, we eventually manage to dispatch of it, and we follow it into the deep, into an unexplored pocket of the Ascendant Plane. Eris called it the Place of Offering. It's hard to know definitively because the entire place is just... it's just filled with darkness. There's practically no light out there to give us any context in the background, but based on that description alone, and on that aesthetic, I think this might be the place where those who are abducted to become Taken get sent. If that's the case, then this location is important even if it's just a tiny pocket, because in this moment, I think geographically speaking, we are closer to the Winnower than we've ever gotten. At least if the Winnower is still the one who takes in the first place. But, of course, many questions still remain on that one. And there are yet more questions about how the Taken are made generally that emerge thanks to the presence and the appearance of this unknown master of the Taken, and, well, the idea that they are crowding in on the space of the Winnower. When we do enter into this space, Eris immediately starts to get distressed and tells us to sever the bindings on the Ogre as soon as possible. After doing this, we're torn between dimensions, but we do manage to escape back. We clear the rest of the Shrine of Oryx of Blight, and Eris has a moment where she asks us to take a look around. She also has a moment where she seems to recognize the force behind all of that nonsense, but again doesn't name it. Looks like our unknown master remains unknown for another week. Following this though, we find a memory of Savathun that has been ingrained into the Shrine of Oryx. A conversation between her and the Echo of the Navigator is what we pick up on here. And that conversation is... it's kind of a big deal. I say kind of a big deal for a lot, but seriously, this changes a lot to do with the Hive. That conversation goes something like this.
Oryx. The Witness is dead. It lied to you.
We saw the Syzygy sister, and we dove to avert doom. I followed you to the...
Let me cut to the truth. The Godwave wasn't the Traveler. We were chosen for light, and the Witness gave us chains. But I can break us out of this game.
Deceit is your language.
We've both been played since the beginning. Look, this is Imaru, my ghost.
Light Pawn! Where is my cunning sister? She would never allow such heresy.
And what do you call what you are now, if not heresy?
Enough! Does my blade not cut? Its edge is truth. Do ties not sink my form? Are logic, gold, and violence?
You're an inanimate object, dear brother. Your blade cuts nothing.
I do not accept this. I will navigate through each manipulation from the beginning, and I will divine the truth alone.
Oryx has shown the flaw in his logic. Faith. Now doubt creeps in. He has long been a creature of singular purpose and boundless curiosity. This revelation could send him reeling, or spell doom should he align with the Witch Queen. We cannot wait for the Echo to decide which avenue to explore. We must act in the face of uncertainty. I will begin preparations and contact you when they are ready for action.
I don't think I can emphasize enough how important this moment is in the story. For years, I've been wondering what it would have been like if many of the other Hive alongside Savathûn learned about the truth of their origins and began to accept it. The truth in question, of course, is what Savathûn told Oryx right there. That the witness lied about the God Wave, that it manipulated the Hive, that they were meant to be chosen by the light, and that their path into the deep was all a grand deception to gain immortal warriors that would forever serve the witness in an unending blood tithe. The Echo of Navigation might not be the real Oryx, but the Hive are certainly treating it like it is. And suddenly, that facsimile of Oryx, the remnant that holds his memory, is undergoing a crisis of faith. And as a result, the whole of the Hive have begun to unravel, just because Savathûn told him the truth. It's kind of funny in a certain way because, well, this was her reaction when we told her the truth. You remember the final mission of the Witch Queen campaign? Yeah, it's one of the only moments where we're able to get any kind of advantage because we rattle her. It's kind of an interesting note because it appears that if you attack a Hive by their faith, then maybe they are indeed much weaker than we'd always assumed. Speaking of faith, if you go to the Dreadnought this week, perhaps in the process of getting the peeling flesh of Arca as a part of the next step, you can actually find a secret that shows you just how much of an impact this is having. If you go into the trenchway and find these hidden platforms, you can head up here and discover yet another of our hidden consoles. This one was inactive last week, but now it has become accessible. After activating it, you can head through the portal into an area above the invasion bay. And here we get a little bit of dialogue from Eris, and it tells us more.
Oryx's return instigated a grand schism in the Hive. They are shaken. They entertain the first doubt. The oldest doubt. They call it the Enteoxuana. The doubt that will destroy them. The doubt that will undermine their core philosophy. Whatever happens must be so. But what must be so is poison. Their king was slain, but his mantle went unassumed. Now he returns as a sword, wormless, resurrected, and without the strength of his brood. There is no greater heresy than this. His sisters know it. He knows it. And so in this, Oryx wishes to begin again.
If anyone else caught the clever inclusion of the word Teox in that large note about the original first doubt, then yeah, you're not alone. I'm pretty sure that's deliberate. Regardless of that fun little note, Eris reveals the consequences of the Echo of Navigation's discovery at this time, and it's kind of dramatic. The whole of the Hive has been watching the return of Oryx, and they have been shaken in a way that hasn't been seen ever. It's incredibly important to note that this monumental point in their story is all thanks to the breaking of a cycle that has been established and existed for untold millennia. They have always held to their faith in the sword logic, and that if they follow it, they will be the final things to exist in the universe, and that the universe will be perfect, and that they will be the proof of it. And now, understanding that all of that is built on a lie, the Hive are starting to fall apart in a certain sense. Even the Echo of Navigation is making commentary on the idea that this is a lie. In particular, there's a lot of dialogue from the Court of Blades that is relevant. He has this entire back and forth with Xivu Arath, where he essentially says that he's lost his faith and that he's returning to Fundament to see proof of what Savathûn's told him. Take a listen, at least to Oryx's lines. In the case of Xivu's dialogue, you'll have to read it. My apologies.
My verses are bloated with lies. I long for the stars. The fundament is my calling. And the taken throne is yours. Long live the king. You know that I must know the truth. It is cowardice to stay. When I depart, the High War will be your inheritance. This court is my love of you, sister. And yet I've learned nothing since then. So I must go. This is my nature, little sister. I cannot change it.
Guardian down.
So yeah, Oryx has talked about leaving the court of Oryx, the High War, to Xivu Arath as inheritance, and has put forward the idea that we are worthy inheritors of everything to do with the Taken Throne, because, well, yeah, that's his perspective, and man, it seems like it's one of the first moments where Xivu's actually kind of warmed to us. Weird, right? Like, very weird, strange moment, but it shows us what Xivu's weakness is. It is the fact that she has to follow her brother. It's also a massive deal because this very same thing is something that Oryx contemplated within the Books of Sorrow, and his takeaway is that, well, he didn't need proof of any of it.
I considered returning to Fundament. Learning what became of the God Wave and the Tungsten Monolith, and the continents which were all that remained of my people's primal home. But I know what became of all that. It became me. I'm the heir of Fundament, the immortal descendant of those 10-year Creel. I asked a question. How can we live in the universe long enough to understand it? And I learned the answer, which is written here in this book. I learned that I had to become the most ruthless of all.
It's also amazing as an idea to play with in all the plot of this. Because, I mean, have you ever heard of a god having a crisis of faith? That's what we're looking at here. Oryx, or at least this memory of him, has been returned through a method that's considered heresy, and then the entirety of his worldview has been flipped on its head. It's such a big deal to see this legendary character changing in this way, because it's not just a change that impacts him, it's about the entirety of the Hive as well. Without Oryx, they were listless and on the back foot. We discover them in complete disarray, for the most part up until Shadowkeep, and then their quick reorganization under Hash-Ladun, Besurith, Kinox, and Voshir is very swiftly dismantled by us. To a certain extent, this is how the Hive have always been. They are reliant on their leaders, and when their leaders experience strength or weakness, they also grow in strength or weakness accordingly. The pain and confusion being felt by the Echo of Navigation is very much being reflected on the rest of the Hive. Where he leads, they are likely to follow. I don't entirely know how I feel about every aspect of this story, but I love that Bungie is taking big swings with stuff like this in particular. And here's another note, it's sort of universal no matter what and no matter how you sort of stretch things and look at them with regards to Heresy versus the other episodes. But I've just got to say, every single week, it feels like something has actually happened. There hasn't been a week that I would call a filler week as of yet. Week 1 was the death of Eris, Week 2 was threats from Savathûn and the discovery of the Barrow Dyad, Week 3 was the Drifter departing and the Echo of Navigation making its presence known to Savathûn and Xivu Arath on the Dreadnought. Week 4 was the return of Eris Morn and us setting plans in motion to capture the Echo and Oryx with it. And this week, we saw Savathûn uprooting the whole of Oryx's worldview and potentially throwing the entire hierarchy of the Hive into disarray. To put it really bluntly, it's just very refreshing to feel like stuff is happening in the story. That's great. But for the moment, that'll be our video. Also, before I do go, the dialogue that we got from the Invasion Bay area, yes, it did also come accompanied by 2 more lore cards from the Song of the Descent lorebook, and I will be making a video on that at some point soon when it's relevant. For the moment though, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, go ahead and leave a like, and if you have more thoughts of your own, leave them down in the comments section. Also, if you want more content from worlds near and far, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Pur audacia ad astra. I'll see you, Starside.